This is the true story of a Danish castle, where a skeleton discovered inside a wall may have confirmed a centuries-old ghost legend. Imagine a sealed chamber, bones hidden deep within the stone, and a figure in white still reported walking the halls late at night. The story begins in Denmark, at a place called Dragsholm Castle. Its origins stretch back to the 13th century. Built around the early 1200s, it wasn't designed for comfort. It was a fortified palace for powerful bishops, a place of power and defense. Think of its structure: thick stone walls, narrow, winding corridors, and imposing towers built to withstand an attack. This wasn't a fairy tale castle. It was a fortress, and its very architecture feels heavy with history and secrets. Over the centuries, its purpose shifted and evolved. It became a noble residence, home to some of Denmark's wealthiest families. But it also served a much darker purpose. It was a prison for political enemies, a place where people were sent to be forgotten. Its halls echoed with the schemes of nobles and the despair of prisoners. It was a strategic stronghold during the many regional conflicts that swept across the land. With a history this long and dramatic, filled with power, wealth, and suffering, it's no surprise that the castle would also produce legends. And one of those legends is more persistent and terrifying than any other. It's known as the legend of the White Lady. For generations, local folklore has told a deeply tragic story. According to the tale, a noble young woman who lived within the castle's walls fell deeply in love with a commoner, a man who worked on the castle grounds. It was a forbidden romance, a secret affair that crossed the rigid class lines of the era. But secrets have a way of coming to light. Her father, a powerful and unforgiving nobleman, eventually discovered the affair. Consumed by fury and shame at what he saw as a betrayal of his family's honor, he decided to enact a horrific punishment. He didn't just banish the commoner or lock his daughter away. The legend claims he had her sealed alive inside one of the castle's thick stone walls. A living entombment, a slow and terrifying end, hidden from the world. This brutal story was passed down from parent to child, becoming a grim piece of local history. And though many years passed, people believed her spirit never left the castle, forever trapped within the stone that became her tomb. This chilling legend might have remained just a story, if not for the strange events that followed. Throughout the 1700s and 1800s, long after the supposed event took place, reports began to surface from inside the castle. Residents, servants, and guards started whispering about seeing a mysterious figure. They described a woman, clad entirely in white, walking silently through the corridors and great halls of the castle. The apparition was often described as being calm, almost sorrowful, never speaking or interacting with anyone. She would simply glide through the rooms before vanishing. Strangely, many witnesses claimed she disappeared near certain walls of the castle, fading directly into the solid stone. At the time, in an age of growing rationality, these sightings were largely dismissed as superstition, the product of overactive imaginations fueled by old ghost stories. They were just tricks of the light or shadows in the ancient, drafty building. The legend was a fairy tale, and the ghost was a fantasy. That is, until the 20th century. In the year 1930, the old castle was undergoing significant renovation work. Generations of decay and damage needed to be repaired. Workers were tasked with restoring the structural integrity of some of the castle's oldest walls. As they began to carefully dismantle a section of thick, crumbling masonry, they made a disturbing discovery. There, inside the wall itself, they found human skeletal remains. The bones were not in a hidden grave beneath the floor. They appeared to have been intentionally enclosed within the stonework, sealed away as the wall was constructed around them. The skeleton was small, and a tattered piece of white fabric was reportedly found with it. The news of this grim finding immediately sent a shockwave through the local community. The old legend was no longer just a story. It now had physical evidence. The news of the bones discovered in the wall spread like wildfire. For many locals, this was the definitive proof they had been waiting for. These had to be the remains of the legendary White Lady, the young noblewoman who was punished for her forbidden love. The skeleton in the wall perfectly matched the gruesome details of the generations-old tale. However, historians and archaeologists urged caution. They suggested other, more rational possibilities. The remains could have belonged to a worker who died during the castle's original construction and was simply buried within the structure as a matter of convenience. Or perhaps the skeleton was a victim of political imprisonment, secretly executed and hidden away during the castle's time as a prison. It was even possible the remains were accidentally sealed during earlier repairs centuries ago. Despite the speculation, the true identity of the skeleton was never definitively proven, and the mystery only deepened the castle's dark reputation. As the 20th century progressed, Dragsholm Castle underwent its most significant transformation yet. The ancient fortress, once home to bishops, nobles, and prisoners, was gradually converted into a luxury hotel and historical attraction. For the first time, members of the public could stay overnight within its storied walls, sleeping in rooms that once served as grim prison cells or opulent noble chambers. It was an opportunity for people to immerse themselves in history. But with these new overnight guests came a new wave of unsettling reports. The strange occurrences at Dragsholm were no longer confined to the past. They were happening in the here and now. Guests and staff at the hotel have described a wide range of paranormal phenomena, much of it echoing the old legends. The most common report is that of a woman in white, seen walking through the hallways late at night, long after the corridors should be empty. She is often seen on the upper floors, moving with a silent, sorrowful grace before disappearing. Other guests have reported doors opening or closing on their own, often with a slow, deliberate movement. Sudden, intense cold spots have been felt in otherwise warm rooms, particularly in quiet corners or near the very sections of wall where the skeleton was first discovered. Some sightings of the White Lady reportedly occur in the direct vicinity of that fateful wall, as if her spirit is still tied to her physical resting place. The legend, it seemed, was more alive than ever. But the White Lady is not the only spirit said to haunt Dragsholm Castle. Its 8 centuries of turbulent history have apparently left behind other spectral residents. One of the most famous is the ghost of James Hepburn, the 4th Earl of Bothwell, a Scottish nobleman and the 3rd husband of Mary, Queen of Scots. He was imprisoned at the castle and died there in 1578 after years of squalid captivity. His ghost is said to wander the courtyard, and some even claim to have seen a spectral horse and carriage carrying the nobleman riding through the castle grounds at night. Another ghost, known as the Grey Lady, is said to be a former servant who still tends to her duties in the afterlife. But despite these other apparitions, the White Lady remains the most famous and tragic figure tied to the castle. Her story is the one that captures the imagination and sends a chill down the spine. Of course, for every ghost story, there is a skeptical explanation. Historians and paranormal investigators who have studied Dragsholm propose alternative theories for the ongoing phenomena. They argue that the stories have been greatly amplified by centuries of folklore, with each generation adding new, dramatic details. The skeleton, they maintain, most likely belongs to an unknown burial with no connection to the legend. Furthermore, the power of psychological suggestion cannot be underestimated. Guests who arrive at the hotel already knowing the legend of the White Lady are more likely to interpret strange noises, drafts, or shadows as something supernatural. The mind, they say, sees what it wants to see. And yet, despite these logical explanations, the sightings continue. People with no prior knowledge of the ghost stories still report inexplicable events, keeping the mystery alive. Today, Dragsholm Castle stands as one of Denmark's most historic and beautiful buildings, a popular destination for tourists, diners, and history buffs. It holds within its walls 8 centuries of Danish history, from the age of bishops to the modern era. but it also holds a much darker legacy. A castle haunted by a secret romance, a brutal punishment hidden in stone, and the discovery of bones that seem to turn legend into fact. At Dragsholm Castle, history and legend are permanently intertwined. The story of the White Lady is as much a part of the building as its bricks and mortar. And some guests will tell you that if you stay there late at night when the castle is quiet and dark, you might just see a silent woman in white still walking the halls, as if forever searching for a way out of the wall that once held her. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true horror stories.